Hey everybody, Rudy here from the Home Improvement channel with another video showing you how to do things around the house. In this video we're going to be working on this dresser. I'm going to show you how to put on chalk paint, and we're going to do a slight distressing on this dresser, and I'll also show you how to put on the final coats after it's painted. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, click the subscribe button below. So without further ado, let's dive right in. Okay, one of the nice things about chalk paint is you don't have a lot of preparation work, but you do have some. One of the things that I'm going to do is take all the knobs off of here, all of them, and I'm going to work on those separate. I'm probably not going to paint these since this is brass right here, and it's just not going to look good to me, but you could paint it if you wanted to, but I just don't want to. This area here was marble, so I went ahead and taped over the whole thing. And over here you might be wondering why this is all white. It's because this dresser was missing this top piece entirely, so I had to build something from scratch. So this was just bare wood, and I went ahead and primered it just because I could. Alright, but you don't have to really sand the rest of this, it's fine. You do want to make sure you're using a clean rag to make sure that your surface is free of debris and grease and anything like that. Make sure you go over it real good. Probably wet the rag to make sure you get it all, but that's about it. After you do all those steps, just go ahead and start painting. Okay, so I'm just using this Valspar paint right here. I got this from Lowe's. It's about $31. There's a lot of different brands of this chalk paint that you can use, some better than others, and this one here is actually one that I've never used before, so we're going to give it a shot and see how this goes. Alright, so you can use a roller, you can use a brush. Some people like to just use a brush only. I kind of like the roller look myself. I think that's a matter of preference. If you do use a brush and you see a lot of brush strokes on the first coat, don't panic. The second coat should look a lot better, but I'm going to use a combination of a roller and a brush, so that's just something that I prefer to do, but the difference is up to you guys. If your piece has any fluted areas like this, you're probably better off to use a brush on that because it just gets in the grooves better. Okay, just wanted to make a suggestion. When you get to the areas where the drawers are at, if you paint in here, make it a real light coat just so that it covers it, but don't make it a thick coat or your drawers probably won't close very well. Put a nice thick coat in front between the drawers, but on top here, and of course under here, I wouldn't put anything. But just right here, I just put a real thin coat right here so that the drawer's going to wear it off anyway, but just so that it doesn't show when the drawer's closed, I'd put a very thin coat right there. That's all I would do. Alright, I did get the second coat on this thing, so I'm just going to let it dry, probably for several hours. A couple of things that I want to mention is when you go to sand it, if you don't wait long enough, you need to let this paint cure a little bit. So if you try to sand it when it's too wet, what'll happen is the paint won't come off smooth. It'll just be all hacked up looking, and it just doesn't look good. So wait a little while so that when you sand, the sand is coming off evenly. I painted a piece of wood that's not associated with the dresser. Then I can test sand on this, and then I'll know if it starts sanding good on the piece of wood, then the dresser has set long enough to go ahead and sand on that. Another thing that I would mention is when you do the tops of these drawers, I wouldn't sand there. You could put a piece of tape across that if you wanted to, or just be real careful not to get any paint there, because the drawer won't close very well. If you do that, I did go ahead and kind of lightly paint the sides of the drawer so that when you pull it out, you see the white. But this, I'm not going to worry about this because I don't want to take a chance that the drawer won't close. Also, in these fluted areas, I took a roller and kind of scooched the roller sideways through here, and then I went back behind it with a brush. And I kind of did that on a lot of the dresser. I would roller over it first, and then I would kind of brush back behind the roller. And I think it gave a nice finish. It got the paint on there faster with the roller, and then go behind it with the brush, and it looks good that way. So that's up to you if you want to use a method like that, but that's what I did. Alright, so we're going to let this thing sit for several hours here, like I said, until it's ready to sand, and then I'll be back. Alright, in these next steps here, I'm going to be putting on wax. I've got two different kinds of wax. I have a clear wax, and I have a darker wax too. I'm going to be putting the clear wax on next. This has been drying for several hours now, and I'm going to put the clear wax on before I do any sanding or distressing around these edges. So we're going to do that. Alright, so there's no magic in this wax. You just rub it on in circles like this. Wax on, wax off. Just like Mr. Miyagi. Try not to work in too big of an area because it'll dry on you and you'll have a way harder time getting that off of there. Try not to miss any areas because you'll notice it later and then you'll be mad. You don't have to let it sit on there too long, maybe a minute, 2 minutes. If you're in direct sunlight, probably faster. When you take it off, go in straight lines. You don't have to do the circular thing. I'm just using a clean lint free rag. An old t-shirt would work fine. You can use a wax brush for this. They sell those. Honestly, you don't even have to do the distressing part if you don't want to. You could just do the wax, has a nice finish to it, and then leave it alone. Some people do like the distressing part, so we'll show some of that. I'm not going to heavily distress it. I don't like it all scratched up myself, but we'll do it a little bit. So that's it, just wax on, wax off. I'm going to go ahead and do this over the whole dresser, and then I'll be back with the next steps, alright? Alright, so I got all the wax on here. This next step, I'm just going to distress it a little bit. You can do this as much or as little as you want, or not even do it at all. It's up to you. But if you want to, you could. I'm just going to kind of go around the edges like so, just to make it look like it's wore out. Because it is. The sandpaper I'm using is like 100 grit, but you could use 80. You could probably even get away with 60. Be careful on this. If your piece was painted before and you put this over the top of lead paint and you're distressing this with lead paint underneath, well, you know about lead paint, so I don't need to say any more. So I'm just going to kind of do this in some areas around the dresser, just like so. Around the drawers, probably around the where the hardware goes a little bit. After you do these steps, make sure you blow all this dust off of here before you put the next coat of wax on. This is going to be a pretty time-consuming step, so I'm just going to go ahead and come back when it's all done. So as you can see, I kind of lightly distressed around the edges here, and some of this fluting I distressed in here too. And Didn't try to get carried away, although I think I wound up with a little bit more than I wanted to, but that's okay. That's character building. So as before, with the clear wax, we're putting on the dark wax this time. Same thing, circular patterns. Try not to do a big, huge area with it, because this is a little harder to get off. Mainly because you can see it more. It's probably actually not any harder to get off, but definitely more visible. Alright, I think that's about as big of an area as I want to do right there. And just same thing as before, just wipe it off. And it kind of antiques it, you know, it's like yellowing an old picture to make it look old. Started out pretty white, but it's definitely not anymore. So you'll just have to go over the whole piece that you're working on. This takes some time, so patience is key on this. Don't get in a hurry, because it won't do any good. So I'm just going to do exactly that over the entire dresser, and I'll come back when it's all done. Alright guys, as you can see, I got it all done. I went ahead and finished the whole thing over with the dark wax like I was showing you there. If you wind up getting the dark wax a little too dark for you, then don't panic, because the last step is to go back over it again with the light wax, and that kind of evens everything out a little bit. So don't let it sit too long. You know, if you see something looks too dark, maybe you should go over it with the light wax sooner rather than later, so it'll lighten it up a lot better for you. After that, that's it. So go finish it up with the dark wax, and then go back over the whole thing again with the light wax, and that's all I did. So if you enjoyed this video, click on the thumbs up, and I come out with videos like this as often as I can. Thanks for watching.